This week on the CNET Tech Review, highlights from the 2011 Frankfurt Auto Show, how to make your own iPad stylus, Dyson's new gadget is full of hot air, and step away from this Blu-ray player. It's all coming up right now. Hi everyone, I'm Brian Tong and welcome to the CNET Tech Review, where we collect our hottest videos of the week and tell you what's good and what's bad in the world of tech and offer our own unique tech wisdom in the form of the bottom line. Let's start off with the good. Molly may be on vacation right now, but Brian Cooley has been hard at work sending back reports from the Frankfurt Auto Show. Here's a look at some of the highlights, including a new concept from Land Rover and a Mercedes that works with your iPad.
Well, it's ironic that Land Rover's Defender isn't sold in the U.S. these days because it doesn't meet U.S. crash standards. Kind of strange for a vehicle that's always been so tough and rugged. It's like a little vault on wheels. They're ready to bring it back. This is one of the DC 100 concepts. The idea here is to bring this forward in two different ways. One's kind of sporty, cabriolet-like, the other one more traditional Defender like this. Among the high-tech features, I'm looking at one right here, supposedly self-cleaning paint. I want to see that work after you go through a big old muddy gully full of rocks, right? Now, technologies in the front of the car that look forward are interesting. They have two things. One's called Terrain Eye. Get it? Terrain Eye. It's a scanning technology that builds a 3D virtual map of what the terrain is in front of you, and the car can say, you know what, you're coming up on a lump or a gully that I can't deal with. Why don't you go this way or that way? And there's one called Wade Aid, a technology that will figure out how deep the water is you think you're about to ford without conking the car and tell you if you can actually do that. They say the car can get through 750 millimeters of depth. That's what? That's about 6.5 long cigarettes, whatever that comes out to. What is that, about a yard? Here's one right out of 007. There's apparently a button inside the car that they envision as extending the spikes on the tires. I mean, they're not spikes to kill people, but just to get some grip. Inside, all kinds of interesting technology. Check out this pop-up display. We've seen this in cars, even in production right now. But if this goes into production, this would actually snap out. It's like a tablet you'd carry with you to do navigation on foot to continue your journey after you run into something you can't drive over anymore. 8-speed automatic transmission right here, part of an efficiency message. I don't want to put any big old horsey V8s or even V6s in these cars anymore. They're talking about 2-liter hybrid motors or even plug-in hybrids. And the driveline on this vehicle would physically disconnect when you're not using all-wheel drive to further cut losses. No place to put a key on this car that I see, and even if it went into production there wouldn't be, because they envision an RFID adventure key, which would obviously be a lot better to have in your pocket when you're out in the mud and the wet than one of those actual physical electronic keys. Now, this is a vision for maybe 2015. It's not going to be in your Land Rover showroom anytime soon, but it does bring back the Defender brand, which they'd love to have on the showroom floor in the U.S. as well as around the world. Well, if you're Volkswagen, you don't just lay there like a dumbass and let Fiat get all the headlines with the 500. You answer it with this, the Volkswagen Up. Now, this is a car. It's in roughly the same class, size-wise. It's below a Golf by a significant margin in terms of overall footprint, as well as in price. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, right now, it's only slotted for European introduction, but you can just about bank on it coming to the U.S. sooner than later. Now, under the hood here, you've got a pretty scrawny 3-cylinder, 1-liter engine. Not sure that would come to the U.S. when and if this car ever does. They might uprate that for the American market, get it closer to 100 horsepower. Right now, it's a 60 or a 75 horsepower mill, give or take, with really good efficiency, really clean, low emissions. This car will come stock with a city collision technology, one that will look forward with ultrasonic or radar, whatever they use, to keep the car from rear-ending someone at low speeds. That's usually the kind of technology that was only reserved for much more expensive cars wherever they came from, but now we're seeing a lot of the small cars offer that as a differentiator. Okay, so here I am, 6'2 plus, in this little guy, and as is always the paradox with little cars, they're some of the roomiest inside because they have very thin door panels, not a lot of filigree and built-up consoles that make a car seem tight. This car is entirely spacious for everyday driving. It's not something you're going to take on a 3,000-mile trip and lay back in. Very simple instrument panel. You've got, what do we got here? A little tiny tack on the left. That's interesting. Fuel gauge on the right, Big speedometer. Finally, that makes some sense. Too many cars are giving too much real estate to tachometers. I love gauges as much as anybody, but you know what? The tach, it's time for it to go. It doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. Often you'll find color-keyed dash panels here that go with the car body. That's very Fiat 500. Not saying they copied them, but that's kind of the style right now. Here's the most interesting thing. Navigon makes a snap-off portable infotainment unit. I'm pretty sure it won't snap off here. Oh, look, it will. What trusting people our Volkswagen friends are. And here are your choices. Information about the car, again, because it's connected to the car's data bus when you dock it. You can't do that with a standalone PND. Here's your media player, pictures, CD player control, because this, again, connects to your optical disc, and car radio control. Again, something your standalone won't do. Your Bluetooth phone controls and technology are in here. And, of course, your navigation and map. All that in a nice slim unit that is actually a portable electronic, sort of a Benny you get when you buy this car. We're starting to see a lot of car makers go this way. Now, the pre-orders begin shortly in Europe for this car, in Germany in particular, and by top of 2012, these are going to be out, but again, in the European market, where they're pricing it at below 10,000 euros. I've been in this business too long to say, oh, just convert that to dollars. It never works that way. Currency conversion aside, but it's a cheap little car. It's bringing up the bottom of the VW line, and it's going to answer one big question. Why don't they bring the Polo to the U.S., which slots down below the Golf? They're going to do this one instead. A big old gull-wing door, isn't it? This is one of the bells of the ball here at Frankfurt 2011, the Mercedes F125 concept. By the way, the end of the name has an exclamation mark on it, and for pretty good reason. There's an awful lot of tech going on here. First of all, the powertrain. There's an electric motor out at each wheel, one at each corner. That's not too exotic. Totals up 313 horsepower. But the torque, of course, would be right now. But it's a hydrogen fuel cell car. So you can go 1,000 kilometers, what's that, 600 and something miles, on a belly of hydrogen. Except it wouldn't be a belly of hydrogen. It would be a body of hydrogen. You see, they're going to store the hydrogen compressed in cavities around the body. I don't think I've heard of that before in any of the various hydrogen concepts that are out there. Now let's talk about some of the technology that's more consumer electronics. You see these doors as they go up and down? Those are gesture control. So you walk up to the door and just go, and the door goes up and the door goes down. You've also got gesture control on that nice big display for the passenger. If they want to go to the next track on a DVD or a CD, they just do this kind of thing. Menu, all this sort of thing is very much like Connect, for example. The display to the right of the driver in the central tunnel, it's a curved display, totally in focus, done by some interesting new rear projection with a sort of an arc algorithm to make sure that it all stays in focus from one projector beam. That's amazing. And then look at that display in front of the driver. That's actually 3D. You can't see that in our 2D stream, of course. Now, what's behind all those systems? One of the most interesting things to me is 100% internet streamed infotainment. So anything from the media to the weather to the news, all these sources coming in, they're thinking 100% streaming at this point. Oh, let me show you an interesting way to configure it. So what Mercedes says is as cars get so complex and so rich with their infotainment and settings and configurability, you need a way to do all that when you're not just sitting in the car. That's one place, but other times you've got more time to sit down and think, how do I want to set my car up, not sitting here in the driveway like some dork. So they give you this very rich app that they've envisioned for the F125. Let's just go to one part of this, the entertainment block. Here I have a whole variety of sources. Information and entertainment, news, weather, music. The music, for example, I can take and drag down to this timeline, which roughly maps to my route in navigation. So these things are going to happen in order of the trip. What's in the music? This is all Napster powered right now. They could have any number of partners though. And this is again part of that all streaming entertainment system. Here are playlists. If I go over here, here are Napster channels. And again, you can imagine anybody being in here. This could be also Pandora, it could be Spotify, anyone that, software is software. This stuff gets really interesting as you start to go to that level. I can bring a weather report down here, whatever I want along my route, or directly access it in here. And of course, there are many other settings and configurability options in here to set up a car that now has arguably maybe 1,000 different configurations. No two cars will be the same. It's, as they say, it's like a smartphone you can sit in, and no two smartphones are the same. So you start to see how we connect the dots here and need a different interface. Oh, one more thing I want to show you. If it's a smartphone you can sit in, I do want to sit in it. Check out the rear seat lounge. That's like a corner group. I haven't seen anything that cool since like a '68 Eldorado. I'm in.
Hopefully that iPad control will trickle down into some more accessible Mercedes models. It looks like the perfect way to design a road trip playlist. Or maybe the folks at Mercedes will expand their technology to other tablet models. If so, they couldn't go wrong with either the Galaxy Tab 10.1 or Sony's Tablet S, but if you're trying to pick which one to go with yourself, hopefully this week's prize fight will help you decide. What's up, Prizefight fans? I'm Brian Tong, and we're bringing you a nasty bloodbath between two dual-core top contending tablets. It's a Prizefight punch-out with Samsung's Galaxy Tab 10.1 Wi-Fi versus Sony's Tablet S. Now, our judges for this fight are Senior Editor Donald Tablet Tinkerbell, Senior Editor Eric Take It to the Bank Franklin, and myself, Brian Tong. Now, we'll take all three judges' blind scores and average them out to the nearest 10th each round. The final Prizefight score will be an average of all rounds using the same decimal system. It's 6 rounds to the finish. Round 1 is design. Samsung brings the cookie-cutter tablet design we're used to seeing. It has an amazing screen that pops, and if you want one of the thinnest tablets on the market, you'll be a happy camper here. Now, Sony's Tablet S is a bold design that strays from convention with its rolled-back magazine design, and it works. Although we wish it was thinner, it's light, easy to hold, and stands out from the crowd. Sony's Tablet S takes round 1 with a 4, and the Galaxy 10.1 gets a 3.3. Next round is controls and user interface. Samsung brings the Touch Wiz interface here, and it adds some cool new features like a screen capture button directly accessible on screen, a redesign for Android services, and quick access to a few utility apps. But its bright and bubbly feel takes away from the elegance, and TouchWiz feels a little cartoonish at times. Now, Sony brings a few customizations of their own on Android with a favorites drop-down to quickly access content you can customize. Moving apps to the top for quick access creates more space, and it brings a more sleek grown-up design to Honeycomb. Sony takes round 2 with a 4, and Samsung gets a 3.3. So after 2 rounds, Sony leads by 0.7 of a point. Round 3 is features. Both tablets have front-facing and rear cameras, but the Galaxy Tab is so thin that there's not much room for anything else. There's additional adapters for HDMI out and media cards, but its screen is arguably its best hardware feature. The Sony Tablet S has a thicker design, and you'll get a full-size SD card slot and a USB port. But its killer feature is its built-in universal remote functionality and its DLNA compatibility for media streaming. Sony takes another round with a 3.7, and the Tab gets a 2.7. Next round is web browsing and multimedia. Samsung's larger 10.1-inch screen really enhances the overall web and multimedia experience, and you'll also have access to their media hubs for music, movies, and TV shows, plus its rear camera is 8 megapixels, and it takes excellent quality images. Now, Sony's 9.4 screen is still great. It has a 5 megapixel rear camera, and it brings innovation to the web browser with its quick view option for faster page rendering. It has a clever keyboard of its own, plus Sony's suite of media apps for TV shows, movies, and music, and gaming with their PlayStation brand brings content that will support the platform. So guess who takes round 4? Yup, it's Sony again with the 4, and Samsung gets a 3.7. So after averaging 4 rounds, Sony still has a solid lead. Next round is performance. Both tablets are snappy performers running 1 GHz dual-core ARM Cortex-A9 processors, and you won't feel a speed advantage between one or the other. The Galaxy Tab brings its vibrant screen and a battery life around 9 hours compared to Sony's solid screen with about an 8-hour battery life. The differences aren't huge here, but Samsung finally takes this round with a 4, and Sony gets a 3.7. Now we have 1 round left, and the final round that decides it all is value. These two tablets start with 16 gig models at $499, and we all think these are solid devices, but that price tag just doesn't make sense in the current market if they want to gain any traction. Samsung has proven their commitment to the Android platform, so you'll get support from them. Sony's the underdog, but their killer remote control feature and PlayStation port shows they're more serious to use their content muscle if they want to keep this platform alive. $499 is still a hard pill to swallow, but Sony just gets the edge in value with a 3.7, and Samsung gets a 3.3. So let's average out all 6 rounds, and this was a battle where Sony just kept getting the edge over Samsung in 5 of the 6 rounds, taking this Prizefight 3.9 to 3.4 and is your Prizefight winner. If you're a little surprised, so were we, but Sony's innovation showed in its design, interface, and unique features that it's bringing to the tablet war. I'm Brian Tong. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys next time on another Prizefight. Like I said, I was a little surprised to see the Tablet S take the win, but with so many Android tablets out there, Sony clearly found some ways to distinguish theirs from the rest of the pack. Next up, it's arts and crafts time here at the Tech Review. Donald Bell has a handy DIY project for all of you who would prefer a way to control your iPad that's a little more precise than just using this.
Touchscreens offer an awesome and simple way to navigate and interact with your tablet or smartphone, except when they don't. When it comes to detailed control, something like drawing or writing, it can be really useful to have a pen. But not just any pen will work, since it's not a matter of pressure, but an issue of electric conduction. You can buy a compatible stylus for as little as $5, but what if you need something right now? Well, in this CNET how-to, I'm going to show you how to make a touchscreen pen that's essentially free, assuming that your boss will look the other way if you raid the supply closet. So here's what you'll need. You'll need a pen, a paper clip, and a sponge. Now make sure that the pen is one of those that you can pull apart. You'll also need 3 tools: pliers, scissors, and a drill. First step, pull the pen apart and remove the ink cartridge. Keep it around though, you'll need it later. Next, slice a little rectangular wedge off of the sponge. You're going to be squeezing a chunk of this through the barrel of the pen, so make sure it's small enough to get in, but thick enough to stay put. Any sponge should do, as long as it has a little moisture in it, and you can always test it out by using it directly on your screen. Next step, drill a hole into the pen barrel. The hole needs to be big enough for the paperclip to get through. Now shove the sponge through the barrel so that it pokes out of the tip. Then put the pen back together, and finally flatten out that paperclip and poke one end of it into the hole that you made, just so that it's jabbing the sponge, and then wrap the rest around the barrel. So long as your hand is in contact with the metal, it'll carry an electric charge through the sponge and to the screen. Now it won't work if the sponge is completely dried out though, but a few drops of water should get you back in business. So there you go, a DIY capacitive stylus you can use with any tablet or smartphone. It's not pretty, but the price is right, it's easy to customize, and you can make one in just a few minutes. For CNET.com, I'm Donald Bell.
Don't worry about a little bit of moisture on your iPad screen. Just don't soak your stylus too much. I know it sounds weird. All right, let's just go ahead and take a quick break, but stick around. There's a lot more tech review coming up right after this. Welcome back to the CNET Tech Review, our weekly video digest of all things good and bad we've seen here at CNET TV. Now, continuing on in the good, if you find that you're working with multiple computers at any given time and have found that using multiple keyboards and mice is a big hassle, today is your lucky day. Here's Rich Brown to tell you why.
Hi, I'm Rich Brown, Senior Editor for CNET. Today we're going to take a look at a new app from Microsoft called Mouse Without Borders. So the idea behind Mouse Without Borders is that it lets you use one mouse and keyboard to control multiple Windows PCs. So we've downloaded the software in the system over here, and it's really easy to set up. We'll install the app, and it gets you this Let's Get Started screen. It asks first if you've installed Mouse Without Borders on other systems. So we're going to say no here, and that generates a security code and the name of this computer, which we then plug into another PC where we've also installed the same program. So we've already installed Mouse Without Borders on this other PC over here, and you can see the same startup screen, but this time we're going to say yes, and it brings us to a screen where we can enter in the security code and the system name from the other computer. So we'll just punch that in, and then you can see the systems are connected. So we'll set up both computers. So you can see the program lets you control up to 4 systems on the same network. We're only going to use 2 here for the sake of simplicity. But that said, earlier we were able to connect 2 Windows 7 PCs and a Windows XP machine on the same network, and things worked flawlessly. We had no problems. So take a look over here. You can see this options screen gives you a few more settings to play around with. Now with the default setting, we can simply drag the mouse cursor over to the other display. But here you can see there's a setting that lets you use a key toggle to switch between systems. And the software also lets you drag and drop screens here to kind of help you make sense of the order in which you're going to move the mouse between systems. So with the wireless mouse, You can see it has no problem tracking the cursor between the PCs. So the mouse works seamlessly, pretty much. There's no noticeable input lag. You can right-click. You can move windows around. You can launch applications. It works exactly as you would expect a mouse that was connected to the system. Now, despite its name, you can also use it to type on the other PC. Now, on top of letting you control multiple PCs, you can also use Mouse Without Borders to drag and drop files between computers. See, we've picked one up. We've brought it to the other system. So as you can see, the software is really easy to use and works pretty much as you expect. We also found it did some things we didn't expect. For example, it recognizes hardware volume keys on the keyboard to control volume on the other PC. Now, it has some limitations. Brightness keys on this keyboard won't change that display over there, for example. We also had problems with games. The mouse sensitivity was just way too high, and we couldn't adjust it, even using the in-game menu. Overall, though, we can see plenty of scenarios where Mouse Without Borders would be amazingly useful, from education scenarios, in a dorm, in a support environment, at home, pretty much anywhere you have multiple Windows PCs that want to talk to each other. And one of the other great parts about the software is that it's freely available for download from Microsoft. So I'm Rich Brown. This has been a quick demo of Microsoft's Mouse Without Borders.
As cool as it is, the Mouse Without Borders utility only works with Windows, so if you want to control PCs running Windows and Macs across your network, check out a program called Synergy. A lot of our producers and editors work with a Mac and a Windows PC sitting side by side, and it works great. And no, Synergy did not pay me to say that. All right, now let's see what we can find out in the bad. Do not buy this Blu-ray player was the headline when Matthew Moscoviak posted his review for the Philips BDP 5506. Now here's your chance to find out why this player can't stand up to the competition.
Hey, I'm Matthew Moscoviak at CNET.com, and we're going to take a look at the Philips BDP 5506 Blu-ray player, which is currently selling for about $165. Now, Philips usually has some pretty unique designs on its products, but this is a generic-looking Blu-ray player. The front panel buttons are all touch-sensitive, there's a glossy black finish, and a USB port on the front. We like the main user interface, which is simple and straightforward, but once you access the streaming media features, it gets more cluttered. The icons are relatively small, and there are plenty of filler services that just kind of get in the way. You'll also notice that while there are some important services that we care about, like Netflix, Vudu, and Pandora, Philips doesn't have many of the premium content sources that competitors do, like Hulu Plus, Amazon Instant, and MLB.tv. On the plus side, the BDP 5506 does have built-in Wi-Fi, so you don't need Ethernet in your living room to use the streaming services. The standout feature of this player is supposed to be Philips Media Connect, which allows you to stream whatever is displayed on your laptop directly to the Blu-ray player. It's an interesting idea, but we found it difficult to set up, and overall it wasn't that useful, especially when competing Blu-ray players have so many streaming media services built right into the player. We also put the player through our image quality test, and we were surprised to find that the Philips failed quite a few of our basic tests. We saw artifacts and jaggies on standard film-based movies like Mission Impossible and Sunshine, and it's the first player we've tested this year to fail these tests. The same kind of issues showed up on DVD playback, so if you care about image quality at all, we'd go with a different player. Overall, with all of its competitors offering better image quality and more streaming media services, there's just not a good reason to pick the BDP 55 over better alternatives. I'm Matthew Moscoviak, and this is the Philips BDP 5506.
I guess it doesn't get much clearer than that, so let's just move right along to this week's bottom line. We're all familiar with the commercials for Dyson vacuums with that weird guy who's obsessed with suction. Then the company turned its attention from sucking to blowing with their introduction of their hand dryers and swiveling fans. Now the heat is on as David Carnoy shows us in this first look at the Dyson Hot.
I'm David Carnoy, Executive Editor for CNET.com, and a lot of times in the tech world we like to describe products as hot and new, but this is the first time that the word hot has actually been incorporated into the product name. This is the Dyson Hot fan heater. It is really a heater. It looks like a space heater, but it's actually more of a space age heater. It works with Dyson's bladeless fan technology. Before, the company had something called the Dyson Air Multiplier fan. That fan comes in multiple models. Now we have the Dyson Hot, which basically pushes hot air through that bladeless fan. There's a thermostat that goes from 32 degrees all the way up to 99 degrees. That's a little bit deceptive because this isn't an air conditioner actually. What you do is you set the thermostat to say if the room was around 40 degrees and you want it to be 50 degrees, you set it at 50 degrees, and every time the thermostat would drop below 50 degrees, the heater would kick in. A couple of cool features like the air multiplier models. This one has a tilt mechanism in it. This one also comes with a remote control. It's actually magnetic and you can stick it to the top of the fan. That remote control allows you to set the thermostat, also the power of the fan, and you can set it to oscillate. Like Dyson's air multiplier models, this is a fairly quiet fan. It does kick up the sound when you do put it on the higher power levels. It's also designed not to get too hot. There's no exposed heating elements, and Dyson's making a big deal about how it's a safer fan. If you tip it over, it turns off automatically. And there's nothing to, in theory, start a fire. In case you're wondering, this can also be used as a standard fan. It is a little bit confusing at first, but you have to set the thermostat all the way down to 32 degrees, and then the power button on the front goes from red to blue, and you are in standard fan mode. The fan comes in two colors. This is the iron and blue color, and there's also a white and silver model. We like this color a little bit better. It does look a little bit more futuristic with the blue on the inside. Unfortunately, the one downside here is that, like most Dyson products, this is a fairly pricey heater at $399. A lot of people are going to balk at that price, but by the same token, it is really a showpiece product, and Dyson has managed to sell a lot of those air multiplier fans, so we also expect the company to sell a lot of these heaters. I'm David Carnoy, and that's the Dyson Hot Fan Heater.
The bottom line this week, this is why I'm hot. This is why I'm hot. You know, at $399 it may seem expensive because it is, but I can really use one of those on a nice sunny summer San Francisco day, like today, if I got a raise, of course. All right, that's it for this time, but come back next week for an all-new CNET Tech review. Until then, there's tons of great videos available every day at CNETTV.com. See you next time. Thanks for watching.